they're just looking for information on the renewing their insurance, and Fuss have asked them a question about if they're maintained by the township or whether they're private. So partially private, and
Okay, Mr. Mayor, we are now live.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Clerk. I'll call the meeting to order. Just so the committee knows that we in Georgian Bus will be reading our land acknowledgement statement for all meetings. We acknowledge that with respect to history, spirituality, culture of the Anishinaabe, the people of the three fires known as Ojibwe, Adawa, Potawatomi nations who have inhabited this land from time immemorial. And further give thanks to the Chippewa Saugeen, Chippewa Nawash, now known as Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, as the traditional keepers of this land. We also recognize the Métis and Inuit whose ancestors shared this land and these waters. May we all, as treaty people, live with respect on this land and live in peace and friendship with all its diverse people. Moving on to the agenda, we're down to the approval of the agenda. Is there anything that any member would like to add to the agenda here today? Seeing none, the recommendation is, oh, sorry, Barb, go ahead.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, thanks. And Sue, I wondered if maybe you would bring this forward, but I noted on the minutes of the previous meeting that there was an item that was going to be brought forward to this agenda, and I don't see it on the agenda. Not,
What item would that be?
that was the approval for the, I wrote it down, the Town of Plimpton, Wyoming support for fire departments.
And who was bringing that forward? Sue, were you bringing that forward?
It was deferred at the last meeting of the September 7th meeting to be brought forward at this meeting.
Thanks, Barb. You've got a better memory than I have because I forgot about that.
So Deputy Clerk, can we add it to this agenda then please under, let's put it on new business, whatever?
Absolutely.
Okay, so. The
I
rec-
just needed to show that I read the minutes.
You passed. Thanks, Barb.
I passed, thank you. Gold star.
The recommendation is that the agenda be approved as amended. And our clerk has, knows when we're going to amend it, or how we amend it. Declaration of pecuniary interest, you can declare anytime you see it fit during the meeting. Minutes of the previous minutes. The recommendation is that the minutes of the September 7th, 2021 Inter-Township Fire Department of Joint Board of Management be approved. Someone to move to put it on the floor, please. Moved by Paul, second by Barb. Is there any discussion on the motion before us? Seeing none, a show of hands, all in favor? The motion is carried. Moving on, we have no delegations. Public question period. Madam Deputy Clerk, has anyone called in any or registered for the meeting?
No, we have not received any submissions.
Okay, thank you. We have no correspondence. We're down to staff reports. The acting fire chief's report. The recommendation is that the quarterly fire chief's report be received for information purposes. Someone to move to put it on the floor, please. Moved by Sue, second by Steve. Jeff, you want to speak to this, please?
Yeah, no, just, I think over the last, like comparables to last year, everything seems to be running a little bit fewer calls this year than last year at this time. Other than that, if anybody's got any questions on the calls or anything, just I could be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Jeff. Does any of the board members have any questions on the chief's report? Seeing none, so a show of hands, all in favor of the motion before us? The motion is carried. We're now down to operations. I have a recommendation here that tender RFP 2021-20 roof repairs for the Inter-Township Fire Department Fire Hall hereby be awarded to DJ Pete Roofing and Sheet Metal Limited at the tender price of $43,400.20, excluding HST, to be completed by November 30th, 2021. And whereas our FT 2021-20 has exceeded the budget amount of $30,000, the remaining additional $13,400.20 be funded from the ITFD reserve. Someone to move to put it on the floor, please. Moved by Steve, second by Sue. Mr. Gomar, go ahead, speak to the report.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the committee board today. Just thought I'd bring this tender to your guys' your meeting today. There is a roof leak that's in the north section of the Intertown Fire Hall garage bay that needs to be repaired before the winter season. This leak is allowing water into the building. It is going to be leaking down the side of the building and also is giving us problems when we're trying to heat the building in the winter time for fire calls and stuff like that to keep our equipment in tip-top shape there. So if we continue to allow this leak to continue, we would be causing more damage to the structure, the roof, and other items within the whole area of the north section of the garage base. So we're hoping that this committee will approve it so that we can get on and get this repair done before the winter season hits us. So is there any questions?
Any questions for the board? Steve, I believe your hand's up.
Thank you. Is this just a patch job or is this doing part of the roof fully? If the roof needs done in a couple of years, is this all for naught?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, to Steve, this is basically a repair, a permanent repair to the roof of this section of the roof. It's going to hold up for until we have to go down the road to do a full repair of the roof. So this is going to last us a bit longer. And then also it helps us out if whatever happens with the future of the fire hall too, if you guys are looking to move it somewhere else down the road or something as well. So this is not the cost to do a full replacement of the roof, but it's just to do the north portion of the garage.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Seeing none, a show of hands, all in favor of the motion before us. The motion is carried. Moving on, we have no unfinished business. We're down to new business. And before I go to the first item, Madam Deputy Clerk, I wonder if we could pull that item up that we want to bring forward from our agenda and deal with it first.
Sure.
Do you happen to have that? I do not have the item in front of me. That's why I'm a little bit hesitant.
I can share my screen with everyone.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I think when we deferred it so that our staff could take a look at that and see just how we would bring that forward as something that we would support. So I think I was expecting that there would be some kind of staff report coming back in relation to this.
The minutes never indicated that, eh? Or did they?
No, it just said deferred.
So I'm wondering, would you, Carly, would you be able to bring it up on the screen just so we can refresh our memories and then we'll decide what we're going to do?
If I could, Mr. Mayor, it says the board discussed deferring the matter until both Township of Georgian Bluffs and Meaford fire officials had the opportunity to review the correspondence provided. So I guess that's why I was expecting something would come back in that respect.
Mhm.
I don't think it's imperative it has to be dealt with at this meeting if none have had a chance to take a look at that and see what impact it would have on us or whether it is worth taking a look at or not.
Yeah, that's fine. I understand what we're asking for, but I'm just wanting to refresh everybody's memory if we could have it on the screen. Or maybe Carly, even if you read it, that correspondence.
It is quite lengthy, so I will pull it up on my screen. Just bear with me a moment. Is everyone able to see my screen?
Mhm.
Would you read that loud, please, Carly?
Sure, I can read it. Okay. So this is a letter from the town clerk of Plimpton, Wyoming, to Doug Ford. So the first paragraph reads, please be advised that on June 16th, 2021, the town of Plimpton, Wyoming Council passed the following motion to support the Council of the Township of Hudson's motion attached, requesting that the province of Ontario work with the federal government to include apparatuses, training, equipment, and structures for fire departments as eligible categories to further any infrastructure programs. The motion from the Township of Hudson reads, whereas the role of Ontario's 441 fire departments, and there are approximate 30,000 full part-time and volunteer firefighters is to protect Ontarians and their property, whereas according to the Ontario Fire Marshal and Emergency Management's latest data, in Ontario there was over 11,000 number of lost fires, 9,500 no lost fires, 484 injuries, 784 injuries, 91 fatalities, and over $820 million of estimated loss in 2018. And whereas fire emergencies only make up a portion of the total calls for help received by fire and emergency service departments as they respond to nearly every public emergency, disaster, or 911 call, and whereas due to anticipated structures and equipment that do not meet current industry standards, the safety of Ontario public and Ontario firefighters is being jeopardized. Now, therefore, the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Hudson resolves as follows: that the federal and provincial government includes apparatuses, training, equipment, and structures for fire departments as eligible categories to any further infrastructure programs which will not only provide immediate stimulus to local, provincial, and federal economies given the current economic uncertainty, but also ensure the safety of Canadians and dedicated firefighters, and that this resolution be forwarded to the Honourable Doug Ford, Premier of Ontario, the Honourable Steve Clark, Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, the Honourable Laurie Scott, Minister of Infrastructure, local MPP, local MP, the Ontario Fire Marshal John Pegg, the Ontario Association of Fire Chiefs, and all Ontario municipalities.
Thank you for doing that, Carly. Could we have the full screen again, please? And any comments from our chiefs or deputy chiefs?
Just at this time, the letter there is basically asking for that if they're in the future, if there's any infrastructure moving forward or going to create any infrastructure, that they include what's referenced in this letter towards some sort of program. So in the future, if they're developing a new program, that they include the fire departments, and it's going to relieve some of the burden on the local municipalities due to the costing and everything being so getting a little higher and higher every year, and the municipalities are struggling. This is sort of just to help us out in the future and moving forward.
Courtney?
I would have to agree. I had a chat with the chief earlier this morning as well, after having a chat with my mayor. This definitely is something that, you know, as we continue to respond to more and more calls and more regulations come down, more requirements for training, fire trucks need to be replaced every 20 years. The cost of that continues to fall on the municipalities. So this would be, hopefully would allow for some money to come in and help alleviate some of those financial pressures.
Thank you, Courtney. Madam Treasurer, I see your hand is up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So firstly, my camera's not working, which is why you can't see me. But I think that this motion stemmed from the most recent announcement that gas tax funding can now be used by fire departments. But when approving that use of gas tax fundings for fire departments, they have said it can only be used on fire halls. It would not, fire equipment and apparatus does not qualify to be used for that funding. So in my opinion, this motion was stemmed from that announcement, that grant can only be used for fire halls. So I think that this motion is looking to expand that eligibility so that that grant funding could also be used on apparatus. In addition to what the fire chiefs have said, that they would like more grant funding available to fire departments.
Thank you, Cassie. Andy, any comments from you before I move forward?
No, just on the aspect of training, where we used to be able to send somebody for a week to the Ontario Fire College, only cost the municipality $65. Now we're paying up to $250, and from there right to $1,200 for the same course plus housing plus expenses. So it's just gone crazy compared to what we used to. So if we can get any kind of funding out there, it would be good.
Thank you, Andy. I'm just wondering, Sue, since you brought this forward, you and Barb, do we have enough information that I think all we're asking for was to support the original motion? Is that not what I'm hearing? Or did you want to put in another motion?
No, I would like to see us support this motion going forward. So that's why I'm wondering, do we need to send it back to our respective councils for them to support that, or do it from at this level?
I really think we can do it at this level. I think we got the gist of what they're trying to do. And I'm just wondering if we, instead of having to take it back to our vote for councils, if we could make a recommendation, either support the motion or put it in our own motion, and that way it'll go to both of our councils anyway in our minutes. Any comments, Barb?
No, I think that's fair. I note our Matt Smith is, our clerk is on the call.
Okay.
And would ask Matt, since we didn't have a chance to talk about this morning, my fault, Matt, if you had any comment.
Go ahead, Matt.
Good afternoon, folks. No comment on this at all. Definitely doesn't need to go to councils. The board should do this if the board wants to, and I think it's a good idea.
Thank
Okay.
you.
So, Madam Deputy Clerk, I'm going to ask on your expertise, what would be a best way of dealing with this, through a motion, a support, or do we as a board want to add any more to it, or to be more clear what we want to do? I'm asking for guidance.
I think a motion of support would be appropriate.
Can we do that motion here today, or do you need more time to be able to come up with a motion?
Based on the existing correspondence, is there anything that is not included that you would like included? Or are you going to pass a general motion in support, such as Clinton, Wyoming did?
I think that was the original intent. Sue, Barb, do you feel that motion, the support they put in there is adequate?
I think that suffices.
Okay.
I agree. I would make that motion.
Okay.
Now second.
Second by Barb. Carly, do you have everything you need? If I have a mover and seconder off that motion of support?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to ask for a show of hands, all in favor of this proposed motion. The motion is carried. Thank you for your help, Carly. Moving on for our agenda, we're down to our fire chief recruitment. Madam Treasurer, I'm going to turn the floor over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So as the board is aware, our former fire chief, Carl Linthorn, has officially retired, leaving the permanent position of fire chief vacant at this time. So what staff are recommending is that we post the fire chief position on the township website and establish a recruitment committee to recruit that position on a full-time permanent basis. So what we are recommending is having representatives of staff from Georgian Bluffs and Meaford to take part in the recruitment. The representatives would be myself, Georgian Bluffs Human Resource Manager Janet Hiltz, and Meaford's clerk Matt Smith. So we will work as a team to work through this recruitment process and fill that role permanently.
So what you're suggesting, Cassie, is that it is a staff orientated process and not a political one?
Correct. We are recommending representatives from senior management of both municipalities, being myself and Matt, and then Georgian Bluffs HR manager, so strictly staff.
Okay, thank you.
That's fair.
Does the board agree with Cassie's recommendation?
Yeah.
Now, Madam Treasurer, do we need to pass a motion to start a recruitment, or just instructions to our Madam Treasurer?
Staff direction is sufficient, or sorry, yeah, direction to staff is sufficient, so we do not need a motion.
Do we need to put in motion who will be sitting on this recruitment committee, or is it just put it in the minutes?
I would just put it in the minutes, but I defer to the procedure expert Carly on this if she would like it more formal.
Madam Deputy Clerk, what is your preference?
I don't think it's a bad idea to pass a motion to appoint members of the board to the recruitment committee.
Not members of the board, Carly, just staff.
Oh, if it's staff, no, that's totally fine.
I would like to see that motion, in that motion, I'd like to specify the staff that are on that committee. Don't leave it wide open, like say who's going to be Matt Smith, Cassandra Rocca, and HR from Georgian Bus. I think we should specify the names that's on in that motion. Steve, I believe I've seen your hand up.
Yes, I've got a thought in the back of my head that I think this should have board representation on this committee. Am I going out in left field?
Go ahead, Carly, or sorry, Cassandra.
So do you mean more staff representation or more like board representation?
I feel there should be 1 or 2 board members on that committee.
So typically, staff recruitment is delegated to staff and is not done by politicians unless it's the role of the CAO. Matt, did you want to comment here as well?
I think it's an operational measure.
Yes, I would agree. I think tends to be the councils appoint CAOs and then staff do the rest, and I think that would be appropriate in this case. I have gone through fire chief recruitment a couple of times recently, so there's some expertise there, and personally I think that will be fine.
With that, this recruitment committee would make a recommendation, bring it back to the board.
Correct, yes.
And this is where we're in such an influx with the board we have in the present way it's set up, a little bit lost. So it's not really a council decision, it's a board decision to hire the new chief.
So the current agreement, the way it stands, is the fire chief appointment would have to be passed by both councils, being Meaford and Georgian Bluffs. We are working on that agreement to delegate more of the authority to staff as opposed to having councils having to pass this motion. But as it stands now, both Meaford and Georgian Bluffs will have to pass a motion appointing the fire chief.
But this is, in other words, approving the recommendation coming from this committee.
Correct, yes.
I tend to agree with what Steve's saying. I know it's an operational thing, and yes, it should be handled by staff, but just it's very vague in the sense of what role does the actual board do. And that's where I'm having a problem. Sue, go ahead.
Would the report from staff as to who their suggested person is not be coming to this board first? And from this board, it would go to both councils. So this board would be looking at it first before it went to either council. Am I correct, Cassie, in that understanding?
Cassie, go ahead.
That would certainly be my understanding. So I think, really in this case, the councils would simply be passing a technical bylaw to go with whatever the board recommended.
Okay, that makes sense. All right, I understand now. So, Carly, do you have a motion prepared indicating what the board is going to do? We are going to form a recruitment committee made up of Cassandra Rocca, Matt Smith, and Janet Hills, HR manager of Georgian Bus. Am I correct in saying that, board? And Carly, did you understand what I said?
Yes.
Does that, could you make up a motion to that effect, and then I can get it moved and seconded?
Sure. So there's a motion prepared that reads that the Inter-Township Fire Department Joint Board of Management directs staff to start a recruitment of a fire chief and appoint the Township of Georgian Bluffs treasurer, Georgian Bluffs HR manager, and Meaford clerk to the recruitment committee.
Okay. If that's okay with the board, can I have someone to move that motion, please? Moved by Sue, second by Barb. Is there any more discussion on the motion before us? Steve, do I see your hand up or you're? Go ahead if you have something to say.
No, I just, I tabled this just for discussion, and I'm happy with the discussion, and I can go with that motion.
Okay, show of hands, all in favor of the motion before us? The motion is carried. Thank you, Cassandra. We're down to board inquiries. Fire chief. Yeah.
Yes.
Any
just-
comment?
Yeah, just a few things there, Mr. Mayor. Just wanted to update you on the pump testing on our trucks 1, 2, and 6. Pump testing has been completed. As well, we will be doing starting our hose testing. We have to test hose every 2 years, fire hose. So we'll be starting that here in the next week or so, getting that all tested and make sure that it passed. It has to meet a certain NFPA standard, so it has to be tested every 2 years. Truck 5, we've got some issues coming up. Just going to give you a heads up on that. It's looking at some repair to around the pump. We do have a leak in the tank, leaking onto the pump. So we're looking at this time getting a quote on how much it's going to cost to get it fixed. But it's going to be could be out of service here in the near future for a couple of days just to get some repairs done. Training as well. We're back to normal with our training. We're back together as a group. With all our PPE, social distancing. Everybody seems to be quite happy getting back to the training. As a group, they kind of missed each other when they were with all this COVID, not getting to see each other as much. And training together is a great thing. And just a little heads up that the toy drive will be starting here soon for Christmas. It's coming up quicker than we would hoped, but it'll be starting up here in the next month or so. We actually got our first toy last Friday, so they're starting early. So at this time, I have nothing else to talk about.
Thank you, Staff. Barb, I see your hands up.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a heads up, and Steve and I both have a conflict with the meeting next scheduled for November the 9th. We have a planning meeting starting at 3 o'clock. So looking at the clock for this meeting, we'd be okay for travel time for both of us. But I'm just wondering if we could start a wee bit earlier for our November 9th meeting, if that would be possible.
I do not have a problem with it, as I can see right now. Carly, can you send out a new request indicating that the meeting will start at 1 o'clock instead of 2?
Or even 1:30?
Yes, absolutely. I can pull the board and include that in the next invite.
Great, thank you.
Being selfish on my side, could you at that day, could you maybe move the police service board up closer too, so there wouldn't be such a long time in between?
I will pull that board as well.
Thank you. You look after yourself, eh? We've no closed session here today. Oh, there's no other questions of our chief? See none? We've no closed session. Our next meeting will be November 9th, and the time will be determined. So if there's no other business here today, I'll ask for someone to move for adjournment, please. Moved by Barb, second by Paul. That we adjourn. Show of hands, all in favor. Thanks, everybody. We're now adjourned.
Thank you.
Bye,
Thank you.
everyone.
Bye now.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.